Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to the Aura Fury podcast. We're on episode 4 now. So, very excited to be here with some guests from Totem Arts. This is actually our first time having guests on the show from outside of the Aura Fury community. So, very cool there. For those of you who are not familiar with Command and Conquer Renegade, even if you're from Aura Fury, uh, it was actually one of the original games that our community started on. So we had Command and Conquer Red Alert, and Command and Conquer Renegade that we used to play tournaments and join in lots of matches with and had a whole bunch of fun with, right along with some of those old classic games that we did during our anniversary events, such as Medal of Honor, Allied Assault. So a lot of those good classic games. And another game that we got into for a while because we were all into Command and Conquer Renegade, of course, was Renegade X. And some of those members of the team that are responsible for keeping that running, as well as some new projects, are actually here with us today. So again, my name is Jacob Ray. If you don't remember me from previous episodes, also known as EconBrony. And next to me, we've got Alex back. I'll let Alex introduce himself real quick, then we'll go right down to our guest.
Yeah, I'm Alex Thompson. I'm Plexus on the Discord, and yeah.
All right, Whistle, did you want to start with introducing yourself?
Certainly. I'm one of the newer members to the team. I'm the current project manager for Firestorm and senior for Totem Arts. Working a lot on our new title, Firestorm. Besides that, yeah, that's just keeping things running. All
right, Fobby, how about you next?
Yeah, welcome. They say you should quit while you're ahead, right? I don't have to say anything. Right? So I'm Fobby. I'm the founder of Renegade X and Totem Arts. And I did most of the sound and audio for Renegade X. And right now, more in like a managerial kind of, role in the development of Firestorm and future Totem Arts projects, potential projects in the future.
Awesome. And Sarah?
Hello, I'm Nod Saiba, also known as Sarah. I have worked on the project for about 4 years, I think. I started working on Renex, eventually kind of transferred over to Firestorm as well. So I do programming, I do social media stuff, and a couple more things behind the scenes as well.
Awesome. So let's get into the first question here. So what is Totem Arts and what projects have you done and are working on?
So Totem Arts is a small indie development company, game developer that started in 2006. It started with the intention of creating Renegade X and has recently looked into expanding to further projects. And we basically mostly just work from home. We kind of invented working from home. We did it before it was cool. And I still remember like the early days, whether it was PC Gamer or GameSpot or other, magazines that and websites that had interviewed us. They were like, well, how do you guys do all this work? Like, you guys don't have a studio. We're like, yeah, there's this thing called the internet. We used Skype back then. We used forums, and we were this kind of global community. And I mean, it's really Renegade X started off as a passion project. We were gamers. We were big fans of Renegade. We wanted to see a further hybrid of RTS and FPS. And like, we saw that Renegade had that hidden gem, even if it was not a huge commercial success. It was a very innovative game. And so we wanted to really form a team, kind of like a community project that aimed at recreating / making a spiritual successor of the game. And Renegade X is our main project. We did also like a short single player for Renegade X called Black Dawn. That was for the UDK in 2012. We had a member, Jeep Ruby, who made something called Project Regenesis, which was just like Renegade models and units in CNC 3, I believe. But that was kind of just a side project. And that was like a little RTS mod. But yeah, I mean, right now we're working on Firestorm. Firestorm Assault is going to be the next release. We're looking at a release in 2022. And then hopefully a full Firestorm game with the full ambitious FPS RTS game mode in the coming year.
Awesome. So were you around during the time when the big advert was "We want to kill Renegade"?
That was me. That was
Is that
me.
what you did?
That was our joke, because everyone thought, it's like, wait a second, if you remake Renegade, what's going to happen to Renegade? And I was like, we're going to kill it. That's what's going to happen. And that was the joke, that like we had a secret plan all along to undermine the Renegade community. But of course, I mean, there's nothing you can do to love Renegade more than to, bring it to a new engine and to remake it. So yeah, no, I was there from the very get-go. March 2006 was the beginning of what was at that point Renegade 2007, because it was on Unreal Tournament 2007. And then Epic was like, we're going to change this to Unreal Tournament 3. And we're like, oh, interesting. So we came up with Renegade X as a new title. No one really knows what the X means. It's kind of like, it's not Renegade 2 or 3 or 10 or whatever. It's just, the future. It's the unknown. X is the unknown. It sounds cool. I think that was probably the main reason. But yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much wiped out the original Renegade, unfortunately. But I think there's people still playing it. We often will do events with the original folks. We love those people. But definitely, we're looking at the future.
Oh yeah, no, we've worked a lot with the W3D Hub guys to keep the games going. They're also working on a bunch of other stuff that we're very close knit with. So they're working on stuff like A Path Beyond. So it's the Red Alert in Renegade's style, in the engine and everything.
That's cool.
There's some really
huge
interesting
shout
stuff.
out. Yeah, huge shout out to W3 HUD and Ben. I mean, those guys are just awesome. And they're really pushing the W3D engine to its very limits. So awesome job to those guys.
Yeah. As for us, the Renegade X, it always struck me as just kind of the generational thing. You grew up with just adding X on the end to make it cooler. I assume that was the case.
Well, Apple and Samsung did that for their phones, so
Yeah, we're ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
you got
ahead of the curve.
We grew up with Dragon Ball Z, right? Nobody really knew what that meant either.
That's very true. It actually became kind of like the running joke in the early days in Aura Fury. Once you put the X on there, and you ran that video where it was like X, and we started doing that as well. It's like, oh, let's go play Renegade X.
Yeah, we did it with everything. Like, oh, this would be great, X. Like, and just adding that as an ad lib to everything that we could do. We're doing a beta. X.
Oh, so silly.
Nice. It's always good when you get those like in jokes that help knit the community together.
Yeah, we're special, definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you did everything from all the forums and Skype and stuff there in the early days, before we had things like Discord. That had to be heck to try to organize and keep going, and then keep track of all the information and all these different places.
We had to start on MSN. We were MSN babies. We were on MSN. We were in high school, and especially, I mean, the major contributor in the early days, of course, also was Havoc 89. And like, we organized on MSN, and we had no idea. We actually live in the same city. We had no idea. I thought he was from the Netherlands, because he had like NL in his name, and I was like, yeah, Netherlands. And then he links me to this like crime that happened on his neighborhood. He was like, oh, this happened across the street. I was like, wait, that's like across the street from me. So we ended up meeting up and stuff. But yeah, like, it was just a huge coincidence that we lived in the same city. But most of our activities were on MSN and TeamSpeak later. We had forums set up really early on, just to keep everything in file and check. And yeah, FTPs, and eventually we got the SVN. And yeah, I mean, we had the tools to get it started up and running, but it took a lot of micromanagement on my part, because whenever you're building any kind of team, and this goes to any new developer out there and startup, you have to be very ambitious. You have to spend a lot of time speaking to potential members, new members, getting them comfortable with each other, getting them to collaborate instead of just being the middle person, getting them to actually speak to each other. There's always drama. You always have to diffuse it. You have to be the glue that keeps everything together, especially for a volunteer project and a passion project where you're not getting paid. So you really do have to like what you're doing. You have to like each other, and you have to feel like you're contributing to something that you'd actually play yourself. So that took a lot of work. And I'm very, very happy that after around 2014 or so, it became this kind of tuned machine that was able to kind of run itself and deal with issues in a professional way.
That's really impressive that you guys have all been running as long as you have. That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of putting it. Very cool, etc. Like, I mean, some people would say, that we don't have a life or something, but no, I really like the way you put it.
So of the two of us, I would be the one least familiar with the background for Renegade X and Command and Conquer in general and such. So was Renegade X originally more like a mod and then it transitioned into its own full sort of thing, or was it always its own sort of thing? Or
so Command and Conquer is RTS. Everyone knows,
Yeah.
like, Command and Conquer is one of the pioneers of real-time strategy. Westwood
Yeah.
Studios being, I think Dune 2 being the first real-time strategy game to come out.
Mhm.
And as soon as they announced that there's going to be a game on ground level where you're not the commander, like, is that a cat in the background? Is that a dog?
Yes, that is a cat.
Oh, the unwritten rule for Zoom, you got to carry the cat. You got to address, this is my cat. Everyone has to appreciate it. I don't know if it will
She
run
doesn't
away
like getting picked up, but
Oh,
it's
really?
my cat.
Oh,
Content
beautiful.
kitty.
What's his or her name?
Fudge, I think.
Fudge. What do you think? Okay, great.
I'm
This is
great
your
with
cat,
names.
right? So we were all excited to play Renegade or Command and Conquer on ground level, and the game was pushed around a little bit. It came out at a strange time. This was a time of 56K internet. This was a time just before, like, I think it was in the same year as Medal of Honor and like Halo and stuff. And it was supposed to come out in 2000, and they pushed it to 2002. And this is while there was a lot of internal issues shifting between Westwood and EA. I mean, it was soon after Renegade that Westwood, stopped being a thing, and it became EA Los Angeles. But Renegade was a game that didn't have the commercial success that they hoped for, and it was like they stopped patching it and stopped supporting it very soon after release. They came out with a few maps, but eventually they handed off the Renegade forums, to the biggest community at that time, which was Noob Stories. They handed off the hosting of Westwood Online privately, and they just kind of cut and run. And there was going to be a Renegade 2, and there were some alpha pictures of that game, but that game never came out. So I was one of those people in 2002, 2003 who was kind of heartbroken by the fact that we have this amazing game. It's RTS FPS, but most people played the single player. They didn't have great internet. The netcode of the original game wasn't very good. There were a lot of bugs. There was a lot of lag. And so the game, like, people couldn't even fully appreciate what was produced. And the community had to pick up not just the hosting and the forums, but they had to create anti-cheat system. And this is a time when, cheats became very publicly available, and people were able to download cheats, like make your head really, really big, and everyone's getting headshots. But yeah, we had to create new maps. We had to create mods. We had to create, and it was a very vibrant community, like hundreds of maps, custom maps, hundreds of mods, hundreds of skins and model replacements and cheats and people were very into this game, and it had this self-sufficient community for many, many years, and it's still being played to this day, 20 years later. But when there wasn't going to be a sequel, first we petitioned EA, the good old days, whatever it was, petition.com or whatever it was, where everyone's signing their like screen name in leet speak back in the day. And you get like 2,000 signatures. Well, that's not really anything. So around 2006, and I was someone that was playing Renegade. I had a clan. I had like 50 people in that clan. We were very competitive. It had Renegade had a huge clan war scene. We decided, like, you know what, we need to like remake this game. We need an engine where this game is going to survive and have a longer life. And that way we can breathe new life into the game. We can get some new players with some of the new visuals, and we can kind of get around the netcoding issues. So that's kind of how it started. And I mean, we were kind of right people at the right time, in the sense that there's a lot of hardcore CNC fans. There are a lot of people that saw the gem of Renegade, including like industry giants like what's his name? The dude from Jazz Jackrabbit and Epic, and I'm forgetting his name now. Cliffy B. Remember Cliff Blazinski? He was a huge fan of the original concept too, and a lot of industry insiders wanted to see something done. So just on pure passion, without spending much money, without and just doing all-nighters and coming together, we were able to create this awesome community project. And like you said, it started off as a mod. It was an Unreal Tournament 3 mod. And then like the impossible happened. They released the Unreal Development Kit, and that allowed you to have indie games without actually buying Unreal Tournament 3. And that was just pure luck on our part. And we were able to create a completely independent game, first a single player in 2012, and then the multiplayer in 2014. And in the future, more games, Firestorm, Assault Mode, and then the full Firestorm.
Nice.
So what kind of things were involved in actually getting the project off the ground in the beginning?
Pure, unadulterated adrenaline. Just we were the like parents' basements of parents' basements, and we were just we were high school kids, MSN. We were very competitive Renegade players, and anyone that knows the Renegade community, this is the most stubborn group of people, I think, in any community. Like, people talk about Star Wars fans, forget about it. Renegade fans, we are the stubborn, like tenacious, I guess this is a way to put it, community. We just refuse to die. We wanted to prove ourselves to the gaming industry that you don't need to go in the pay to win direction. You don't need to go in the mobile phones direction, or the browser games, or the Facebook games, or that farm, whatever that Facebook farm game was. That you don't have to do that very casual, that you can have a AAA game that is as smart and as sophisticated and as unique and creative as possible, without resorting to just capture the flag or deathmatch or kind of this, the Call of Duty style games. That we wanted to make something really smart and really cool. So that's what, just pure adrenaline, pure passion was able to get this project off the ground. No money, no real experience in the industry, but just a love for Command & Conquer, a love for Renegade, a love for innovation and creativity, and for the community.
Nice. It's always great seeing the results of deeply passionate projects and how much they can accomplish.
Yeah, and I mean, most, like 99% of the time, you're gonna fail. So you start with that, like, you're trying to cheat death as any startup, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to be Darth Plagueis, and you can't. The odds are against you. So you have to put in more effort, more passion. You got to recruit the right people. You've got to get rid of drama and sedition as soon as you can. And just have a focus and be as inclusive and great as possible.
Nice.
So a lot of our listeners and viewers are not necessarily super like technical savvy and things like that, and know exactly like what the difference is between a mod and something like Renegade X or Firestorm. Would you be able to explain that?
Yeah, like a mod is literally a modification. You need to buy, let's say, Unreal Tournament 3. in order to play the original 2008 Renegade X beta, which was a total conversion modification of Unreal Tournament 3. But an indie game means you don't have to buy a previous game to get the new game. You can just get that new game directly. Like it's an independent. And so with Renegade X, you can literally just go to Totem Arts website, totemarts.games, and you can download Renegade X for free, no strings attached. You don't need to have any previous game or any prerequisite. You just have to have the system to run it, for Christ's sake. Just make sure you meet the minimum system requirements, and that's pretty much it.
I think from a technical standpoint, the difference between a mod and what we've done is this is a complete standalone. This is a reimagination and invigoration of the game itself. If you want to, like, for a mod that is going into an existing game and changing some of the files, you know, Battle Brothers, for example, you could change the spawn rate of a certain asset. You could change the health. Congratulations, you have just modded your first game. Yeah, that's as simple as it could be. Just changing the values or something, changing the skin. Anyone who's played Renegade, you'll remember the old skins that you could get, like the silver SBH suits and stuff, or the SpongeBob C4s, I believe it was. But those are mods. Ours is new engine, new imagination, developing it with the faith of the original. But we've definitely taken some liberties in changing it up as well.
Cool. So speaking of engines, I'm guessing you guys are on the Unreal Engine then, or do you use a different one, or have you changed over time?
That's correct. So we are on Unreal Engine 3. And that was, you know, when in 2006, I was looking at what would be a new home for Command & Conquer Renegade, a good home. And, you know, I was looking at the various options, and in the industry news, there was all this talk about Unreal Engine 3 and how it was going to revolutionize the industry. And it turned out to become, you know, later on, the most popular game engine ever. So we, you know, it was partly calculated, it's partly luck that we ended up on the right engine. We're very happy. We have a good relationship with Epic as well. At least, you know, we did definitely in those days have a very good relationship with them. And eventually the Unreal Engine 3 became the UDK, which is kind of like an Unreal Engine 3.5, something like that. It's a little bit upgraded. There's an SDK, which is like an editor, and you're able to, create your own mods, maps, and yeah, we were very happy with that. We looked at some other engines potentially. We were looking at some point we were wondering if it's worth going into the CryEngine. We were not so happy with the development kit. We were looking at, I mean, there's always this conversation of should we migrate to Unreal Engine 4 because that's out, and that's something that we might do in the future. But yeah, for now, everything is on Unreal Engine 3 or UDK, which is the Unreal Development Kit.
I don't think anyone knows it better than Sarah, really. Maybe Hende, but
I think that's that's definitely something.
So what kind of things does the UDK give you as a developer?
What does the UDK give you? I mean, it has pretty good tools. Like Fobby was saying, it was, I don't know if I'd say revolutionary, but it definitely put good tools in the hands of everybody else. I don't really know specifically like what was new in Unreal Engine 3 compared to number 2. But there's definitely like lots of tools like Kismet, which is like a type of visual scripting. You can use languages to script different events and like different sequences and stuff like that. Besides that, I'm not really sure what was too new in Unreal Engine 3 specifically.
There's a lot of I mean, so, you know, complete freedom in terms of being a standalone independent game was great for UDK. It was the first really like major engine of the time to be like this open access, free available engine that any game developer could use to, and then you either buy the license, right? You spend lots of money and buy the license, and then you can get a lot more revenue that way, or you can release, like there's a free UDK release where they get like a big royalty. Epic gets a royalty. But yeah, I mean, complete freedom for us as a standalone game. And there's a lot of assets and stuff in the editor itself. Of course, tutorials, of course. Everything's done in UScript right now. That's Unreal Script. Unreal Engine 3 / Unreal Engine 2, they have their own scripting language. Unreal Engine 4 and onward will use C++. And that's one of the main attractions to it, is that you'll be able to bring on programmers that haven't specifically gone out of their way to learn Unreal Script, which is, very particular to the Unreal Engine 2 and 3.
Okay. So with you guys doing Unreal Script, is that then the language you do everything in, or do you have, I don't know if, I'm not familiar with Unreal Script, but does it have the support to put in like little snippets of C++ or other languages or things like that?
I get the impression it's not that hard to learn if you know C++.
Okay.
But yeah, right now the engine is all in Unreal Script. And one of the perks of moving engines in the future, if that's in the cards, is that we'd be able to expand to the more everyday programmer would be able to join and contribute.
Nice.
There's some crossover. There's a few different languages used. I believe Hande was talking about using Flash for the UI elements. I'm not sure how many other crossovers there are. Sarah, do you know?
Yes, we do the Unreal Script for basically all the in-game stuff. For example, we have like the current launcher, which is like C#. We also have a new launcher in development that would be Rust. And then the HUD-related stuff is Action Scripts 2/3.
So a few
Oh,
different
cool.
things.
Yeah.
So the projects have been mainly done with volunteers. How do you recruit members? Then how do you actually keep them motivated to stay on the project?
No, that's a good one. 100% volunteer project. Absolutely no one is able to, we kind of are able to support the game through donations. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the IP belonging to EA, being a CNC game. There were very strict requirements behind, but only recently were we able to take on donations. And we have 100% compliance with that being used for game development and upkeep. That is it. We do not really, it doesn't go to any developer at the moment now. As for bringing people on, and keeping them involved, these are one and the same. It's definitely passion. It sounds very cheesy to say that, but the more and more that I've had to look over the history of the game and speak with some of the older members, that is 100% it. Like with a volunteer project, everyone has their own lives. It's a priority for them to make this balance and balance these sides, from adding to the work to adding to your personal life. Sometimes it can be a bit much and people can be a little bit downtrodden, or not downtrodden, but they sometimes feel a bit burned out. There are no requirements for people. It is whatever you can help with, help. That's great. But what really gets people driving and pushing the ball forward is that passion. I myself was going through a bit of a stupor, and it wasn't until just yesterday where I saw an image of the Kodiak in one of our maps in the sky, just sitting there. Kodiak being one of the aircraft from the Tiberian Sun series. And it just looked amazing. And it just kicked in my brain into gears, like, but what if we added this? What if we did that? What about the voice lines that we could put in with that? And it's that kind of show, that kind of development that you get other people bouncing off. And that has been a key piece since I've been told, since the very beginning of the game. We moved from the mod to a standalone based on seeing a Nod soldier on, I believe it was Hourglass, and that was the first video. And everyone was like, "Holy hell, this is amazing! We're gonna try this. What if they get a gun? What if they get a rifle? Oh, look, there's the obelisk, And it just kept people pushing forward, and then they do something, and then someone would bounce off that and add something. And that's really the challenge, is to keep that push. Try, even if you're not feeling it that particular day, to bring something extra to the game, bring something that other people will be like, hell yeah, that's amazing. I want to add this, I want to do that. If you get other people excited, you'll bounce off that, you'll get everything sorted. And that's what we really, really rely on, is that feedback loop of positivity. It is a completely volunteer project. So, there's nothing else. We have to rely on that. And that's when we see the best progress in the game.
Hype was a huge help, like in that we worked really hard on our trailers. We had like a Tiberium comet coming and crashing into the earth on one of the trailers. That was CG. We had like Black Dawn had tons of cinematics, and we used that for promotional material. We made a lot of custom tracks, like music tracks. We released them. So if you look at like just some of our media, we're pretty decent at keeping the hype up, keeping the hype train going. And that gets the team motivated, it gets the fans motivated, it gets new members wanting to get involved. So yeah, just we also want to like make sure that people are working on a game that they themselves want to make, or rather want to play. So having a lot of like options in the game, whether it's server-side options, whether it's like graphic presets or other customizable things in the game, we want to make sure that as many people as possible are happy, because this is not just the vision of like a marketing team, or this is not just a vision of a CEO, but it's a community project, and everybody has to feel like that their ambitions are being fulfilled in some way.
Definitely. That's one of the main reasons why we have such reliable playtest sessions. It is so important that we listen and engage with our testers, because they drive the development, the feedback. All of it has to come back in, and we need to be seen to be taking action on the back of it. If you don't even need to be in game development, you can be anywhere in your life, and if you feel like you're not being heard, people are going to switch off. They're not going to care. I wouldn't. I don't. My regular job, I won't lie. So if you are not part of the conversation, then you will shut down. Your people will shut down, and they will not want to take part. So that has to be, in my opinion, the number one thing that has to be done. You must make sure that everyone is involved and you are talking with as many people as you can. You can't work to the whims of ghosts. If people are not engaged in that conversation and have a problem, then that is going to develop into something more further down the line. But on top of that, for recruitment, I've got to say as well, is it's not only just the passion. People love the CNC games and stuff like that, but things that you might be interested in would be people just wanting to learn basic game development stuff. They want to work within a team that has some grounding. They don't want to work on a mod per se. They want to learn more about how to join or work on their own games or other projects. Where else to go than one of these, a passion project, a game like this? It's a completely volunteer. It's like better than working at Oxfam, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a gateway to bigger community industry jobs. Like we've had members of Totem Arts that have moved on to EA and DICE and Crytek and Guerrilla Games. So like they need, people need to build their portfolio and build their skills. Oftentimes when they join our team, they start young. We see that spark of potential, whether it's in art or programming, and then they develop their skills in the sojourn of Totem Arts project, and oftentimes they build their portfolio and they move on to bigger things.
So on that subject, what sort of turnover do you typically get with volunteers?
I mean, Renegade X has been worked on by hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. There are a few people, there's maybe a core of like 10 to 20 people who are maybe more consistent throughout the years. But we've had people that come in, contribute one art asset or 5 art assets, and then leave. or people come in and they contributed to Black Dawn code and then they left. People who come in, they create 1 or 2 tracks for the game and then they go on to something else. So people, and oftentimes they move on, sometimes they come back, but hundreds of people have been involved. And really, like, you have some hardcore fans, hardcore developers who are at the helm, who are there to see the whole development process, and those people will stick around for a lot longer.
It's definitely hard to track because sometimes, you'll have a big name who have been with the project for a long time, need to step away for professional reasons. But it is a volunteer project and no one's getting paid for this. So real life comes up all the time. We had the Ukrainian war come up very recently. That has definitely put a dampener on development. These people haven't left, they're still technically there. We had another who has been out of action for a good 6 months, who was one of the main contenders and helpers with the game, and they've just come back now. It's not so much a turnaround because it's all volunteering your time. If you want to go absolutely fine, but it's hard to measure people who just casually dismiss the game or walk away from it because it is completely voluntary. They might come back in a month time and just be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do something more, I'm going to join in again, I'm going to take part in this testing session. And even if that's all it is, it helps a lot. As for testers, we kind of just keep we know who's in the community, and the testers are generally pretty consistent. There are low numbers at the moment, but yeah, for developers, it's hard to keep track of. There's not many people that just go. Some people just end up having not enough time. We reach out to them, say, hey, how are you doing? Be like, oh yeah, I've been really busy, I don't think I have time for it anymore. And then we just go, yeah, fair play, and we'll slap them with the former developer tags. That's how it goes. It's not consistent because it's down to every individual person.
Yeah, it's cool to have a project where you've got lots of contributors pulling together to make something bigger than all the parts.
Definitely. It is 100% team orientated. It has to be, or it will not work.
You get quite a few people that end up coming back after, like the story you just said, he was gone for 6 months and then starts working again.
Oh, a few times. We've had a few points like that. The most notable would be one of our seniors of the team, just complete radio silence for about 6 months because he had to move house and stuff. I won't go too much into it, but now he has free time and he's back in business and he's helping out fixing the jump jets. It's great.
Awesome. And when it comes to recruiting people, do you find that it's mainly like the media and excitement that's kind of built the community gets people to step forward, or is it like your website that's pulling people in, or do you go out and directly find people?
Initially, I'll just say that initially, I had to go and find people, in that the Renegade community and other CNC related mods at the time, 2006, 2007, I looked for people that made certain maps, for people that made certain skins, people that worked on certain mods, and I contacted them directly by email, by MSN at the time, and tried to convince them that this was worth their free time. And of course, some will say yes, some will say no. I was very persuasive, thankfully, for the right people to pull in early on for this to get off the ground. But nowadays, yeah, definitely it's the social media. I mean, right back then you didn't have social media, or at least it didn't have as much of a footprint. YouTube was new, Facebook was new in 2006, and it was like brand new. And back then it was more about, you contacted the right, like Planet CNC or CNC Den or CNC NZ back then, and you make sure your media gets on those websites. Nowadays, or I would say slightly after that, it became, your Facebook and YouTube game promotion. And then nowadays, that doesn't get enough traction. So now we move on to finding streamers on Twitch or on YouTube. And so it's really like through social media and through streamers and through interviews where we do create excitement, and then people come in. And sometimes, industry people know other industry people. You're a programmer, you might know another programmer. You're an artist, you might know another artist, someone that you went to school with or a friend of yours or whoever. So it's definitely changed over time, and we've had to adapt with each of the big changes.
I mean, Sarah, you're pretty much on the pulse for the PR stuff. How much do we get through social media? You were going through the stats earlier for some of the videos, but how have you had much interaction with recruitment through that side?
Yeah, we definitely do get some responses from the community. Like, for example, people like DM our Facebook page and ask like if they can contribute in any way. Also, when we like release YouTube videos, sometimes they write it in the comments. And now that we actually have a page dedicated for job recruitment, instead of that just being like, hey, why don't you come over to our Discord and like talk to us? People can actually like see what positions we're looking for and like what skills specifically that we need. So that definitely, I think, has gotten more people to apply because before they thought they'd have to be like an expert in all these different like skills and stuff. But I don't think that we're a little too heavy on the requirement side. But yeah, we definitely do get a lot more responses when we do release stuff on YouTube, like new YouTube tracks or dev talks.
Definitely seen an uptick there. We've also had some work done, I believe, for our application forms. You mentioned the new website. Yeah, we do have a new website as well, where people can apply, and that's getting us a reliable number of new people to speak to every week. It's interesting. Previously, it was a bit slower, or at least less organized, but with Zach's form and everything, it's shout out to Zach, by the way, huge help. Wouldn't know what to do without him, but he's set up the new form for that, and we're able to keep on top of it. So we get people applying almost every week. There is a lot of people applying and saying, yeah, Unreal Engine 4, C++, that's my jam. And we're like, oh, we're a bit stiff behind that one at the moment. So maybe when the next project comes out, we'll definitely hit you up. I mean, there's nothing stopping people from joining when they have experience that'll be helpful in the future, because this is things we're actively looking at. See, we did touch on it previously. UDK does have a few limitations. How many, Sarah, you know the answer to this one. It's audio per track, audio limitations. It's like 64 sounds at once, right?
And there's a lot of limitations, like how many lights can affect like a mesh on the level and stuff like that. How many actors can be replicated between the client and the server before it starts dying.
Yeah, so that's one of the big pushes. So we can see the limitations. We're at the end of the UDK lifespan, so we can see where we need to go. So recruiting based on that, we're ready to go for it. If you're interested in C++, so you're working on Unreal Engine 4 or want to see what Unreal Engine 5 is going to be like, we're interested too. We're looking at it. So yeah.
So I was always puzzled on how the heck you guys were able to get permission from EA to use all like the Renegade assets and things like that. I remember it was a big announcement when it came out, when you were able to get it. And same thing goes for like Epic. You've been saying you've been working with Epic. We're really curious to hear the stories on how you managed to get that.
Yeah, so we were also very lucky in that EA was very supportive early on. We had a good relationship with APOC and Tupac later after that during the CNC4 days. You know, let's not mention CNC4 ever again. But yeah, no, we had a good relationship with the community team at EA and some of the developers. They featured us on their Battlecast Primetime, and generally EA was okay with anything as long as you weren't making a profit. And that was the only kind of rule. Otherwise, you were able to mod their games. You were able to take their intellectual property into a new engine. We were the first major game to do that, or first major mod to do that, and then game. And then we were eventually featured on like the Battlecast Primetime with APOC. They would share some Renegade X news on their website. And I was invited to the CNC4 alpha testing at the time. So we had a good relationship with them. Eventually, you know, CNC, you know, it's on hiatus, it still is. And so we've just been in contact with like the corporate and some of the developers, just to make sure, like at one point we were trying to get on Steam, for example, and EA didn't allow that, which is fine, because we're still free, we're still available to anybody that wants to download the game. And other than that, yeah, EA recently allowed us to take in donations. So Whistle mentioned that earlier. You can always go to our website. If you like what we're doing, you can donate. You don't have to. You don't owe us anything. It's a passion project. But if you'd like, then you can always donate to us. And that's something that EA has allowed for all CNC mods and games, as long as we're not selling the game or selling merchandise related to the game. Because we do need to, support the website. Like we need to host servers. We need some level of cybersecurity. We need some freelancing here and there. So yeah, like all the money that goes to Totem Arts stays within Totem Arts related services and like upkeep for websites and servers.
It's definitely got to be said, though, that EA have taken some interesting steps with the CNC remaster coming out, listening to and taking on board the feedback from the CNC communities. Because honestly, that's the people you need to work with. They're the ones that love the game and they're going to buy it. So yeah, absolutely well played on their part. But that has helped us as well, because we're under that banner, even if it is the nuance of Renegade X or the Renegade series, which is a little bit of an outcast in regards to the CNC series. It's one of the ones it's not a pure RTS. It does get shunned by some players and never want to see it, but it's always got that golden light of being an alternative way to see it, a new way to see the universe.
Yeah, I was really happy to see EA coming in and talking with the community and working with them so much, and then going back and finding the original music artists and bringing them back in to the work on the remaster. I was very pleased with all that, and it was a lot of fun to see. I'm glad to see EA was doing all that.
Oh, for sure.
So what would you guys say is your biggest hurdle that you've overcome as a community?
So obviously with any volunteer project, it's not run exactly like a business. Everyone is very passionate. Everyone has different maybe ideas or different vision of how things might be. So sometimes there's internal politics, internal drama that we have to deal with very, very quickly. Otherwise, it could hurt the momentum of a project. So that happens every so often. But we've been very, very lucky to, over the last, how long has it been? 17 years? To go, like, it's been very, very smooth, relatively speaking. And every so often, we have bugs, we have issues, we have glitches, we have we have like different opinions on how the game should be played. A programmer touches the code of another programmer. This sort of thing will happen every so often. And anyone in a managerial position has to always be like extinguishing any kind of little fire that comes up. And of course, in any kind of PR as well position, and Sarah and Whistle have been involved in PR as well as myself. You want to make sure that the fans are happy, that the players are happy, that their needs are being met, that the testers are being heard. And I remember for the original Renegade. So in 2014, when we were about to release the multiplayer Renegade X, we had a lot of naysayers from the original Renegade who were concerned. They were saying there were things that they liked about the original game. There were things they didn't like that were different in our game. And they were concerned about the change. They were concerned about maybe their game dying, or their, the community being split between the old Renegade and the new Renegade. They were concerned about some aspects of the game that we changed. So we decided we're going to take on all of the naysayers, and we're going to add them to a special kind of VIP beta testing session. And we're going to hear all of their concerns. And those same naysayers ended up being the best like proselytizers for Renegade X just around the time of release. So we were very thankful for that. It's best, people want to feel special. They want to feel listened to. And Totem Arts, we want to continue being that community project, that passion project, where there's like a real human face and it's not just this corporate monstrosity.
Definitely. I mean, on that note, is just the with this being a remake, with Renegade X specifically, it's a reimagining of a game that already exists. A lot of people love the game, flaws and all, which there are. It would be foolish to say otherwise. Every game has its flaws. The more we stray away to try address these things, to maybe try to emphasize different areas or more enjoyment in certain aspects, or to push it in different ways, the purists would be upset with that. That's completely natural. So we are creatively limited in some respects for Renegade. The more we push it, the further away from God's light, essentially. It's easy enough to do one-to-one crossover, but it doesn't seem to do it justice. There are issues that need to be addressed. So we have tried to fix those, and we've gotten really far. We've done. You can already see the commander powers. You can see how the Mobiuses and the characters behave differently. A lot of huge changes in how everything works. But there's always going to be pushback. There's always going to be emphasis there, and I think that's the main thing. Is we are not trying to make a perfect game. We're trying to make a fun game. There is no such thing as a perfect game. Some people will, say, oh, this is the perfect game. FTL, maybe, because it's simplistic and easy and understandable. But this has potentially a lot more depth and is challenging in ways that other games have never done before. Renegade has that niche of RTS and FPS hybrids without an armchair general like Battlefield 2142 or natural selection or anything like that. This is a purely team-based orientation, and it's all on the field. You're pushing the enemy team. You're doing this battle. So it's trying to refine something that no other game has naturally done before. Every single iteration either is hands-off or it involves an armchair general. Somebody has to sacrifice their ability to run around and shoot people while sitting in the back. They have to give the orders so other people do it. In this, it's not that. You are just on the field of battle with everybody else, and you have the ability to throw a smoke and stuff like that down. And that's the difference. Battlefield can look at Call of Duty and see what they've done right. Call of Duty can look at all the other Call of Duties and see what they've done right. They learn from each other. And while we can do that for a lot of the gameplay elements there, the core fundamentals is a lot harder. Nobody's really done this quite so well. So the further we stray away from the original, we're going into untempered ground where people haven't really stepped before. It's interesting. I would say that is one of the biggest struggles that we have, is going and doing something that nobody else has really done before. And that might be, I might be a bit of a braggart saying that, but that's how I see it.
So at what point did you finally say this is all ready for release, and how did the team feel about it?
So our first release was the Unreal Tournament 3 beta, and then later it was the Black Dawn. It was Black Dawn, and then it was 2014 Renegade X multiplayer release. And we had the "it's done when it's done" philosophy, but we also had kind of "it's done when it's fun" philosophy. So it was like, okay, all of the major assets of the game are there. Like, we had enough maps, we had all the weapons that we wanted, all the tanks that we wanted. And it was running smoothly. And so we released it. Now, in hindsight, we didn't have the adequate testing that we wanted for the Renegade X multiplayer release. Like, it definitely could have used a lot more testing prior to the initial release. We tested it internally and we had a team of testers, but it was, we're learning now, especially with Firestorm, that you need to have a huge testing team Remember that only a fraction of the testers are going to make it to testing sessions because of time zones and other commitments, and it's all being done for free. And it needs to be tested over a long period of time. And tester feedback has to be looked into and sifted and all of that. So we've learned our lesson in a sense. In the initial release, we had an issue with like crashing. So upon map changes, sometimes the game would crash. And so anybody that downloaded, and we know that like the public has a very low tolerance for glitches. And this is just the case with any game. And we saw like what happened for the release for example, what's that Keanu Reeves game? I'm forgetting.
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, Cyberpunk. Like, you know, that as soon as people see an incomplete part of the map, or if there's a crash, or if there's a T-pose, like people are like, okay, I'm done, I'm leaving. And there's a low tolerance, and that's just, and you know, they have a right for that. They have a right to that. People probably, a lot of them probably downloaded the game, joined, and then maybe crashed and was like, maybe this is not good for my computer, and so they might uninstall the game. If you want to have proper player retention, you want to make sure that the game's not crashing, that the game's balanced, that the game is fun to play, even when you're not winning. So we noticed that like the initial response, we had millions of downloads, millions, right? Huge initial response. But that diminished with the glitches in the initial release. And so since then, it's been a game of like retaining what we have. And thankfully, in the year 2022, there's still quite a few players for Renegade X. We make sure that there's always a full server every day, sometimes 2-3 servers. There's always hundreds of people logging in on a daily basis. So we're very happy that you can join in during the day and sometime in the evening or in the morning and actually have a really fun game of Renegade X. And that it's been like that for 8 years now. And we hope it'll continue that way. But we also realize that for any initial release, that's a first impression. You don't want to screw that up in any way. You want to make sure that's as perfect as it could be. So we're really taking our time with Firestorm. We're hoping this year we want to release the assault mode, which is really just a fraction of what the game will be. Assault is a lot like the Battlefield Assault, where it's just 2 teams, there's an objective, there's weapons and vehicles and some customizable classes. But that's really for us as well, in that it'll be tested on a wider scale. We'll be able to understand balance better. We'll be able to understand what the community wants out of the game. We'll be able to get the right statistics and the right figures, the right values for damage and, you know, like weapon damage and you know, rate of fire. Like we'll be able to look at it very mathematically. And then once we head into the major release of Firestorm, which will, you know, have base building and like you'll have several different bases per team, outposts that you take over, harvesting and airstrikes and super weapons, minor and major super weapons. Like it's a really, really smart, sophisticated, crazy game. And like that requires a lot of, you know, we want to make sure that it's perfect before it's released.
No such thing as a perfect game, my friend.
Yeah, well, you know, we want to make sure that we as a free project have done what we can within our ability.
Possible, yeah.
Exactly. As much as we can, that we've taken all prerequisites that we can and that we could foresee. Hindsight's always 20/20, but we want to have the right foot forward, or the good foot forward.
Well, there's 2 things. There's a few things I'd say about that. First and foremost is we have released Renegade X. It is not technically out of beta. It's still technically in the beta stage for however many years it's been out now. It is close to that final release as well, just as a heads up. But there are also points that we made earlier that, you know, we can look at only so much of other games to learn from them, but we have definitely had the opportunity to look at Cyberpunk, look at Battlefield 2042, and look at our own original release and see and learn from those, because there have definitely been mistakes there, and we are not in any rush to please any monetary demands from investors. So we have no pressure to release. Now, if we were to just imagine if ever we were to work with investors to make something with a budget, if we were to make the same mistakes as some of these AAA studios, whilst we don't have the same issues that they have, if we don't play to our strengths right now, what hopes do we have then? Additionally, you were talking about statistics. We had millions and millions of people who potentially downloaded the game, and then 50% ended different the next day. We've seen a lot of talk about that, particularly with Steam statistics on, I think it was like Elden Ring and stuff. There was some guy making a joke about how, judging it based on the stats alone was foolish. Any game after like the first month, the stats, they're going to drop almost by half. That's judging it by the drop off on your original statistics from launch is foolish. It is. Elden Ring, fantastic game, dropped off 50%. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. Battlefield 2042, much the same. Cyberpunk, well, yeah. There's no way to, it's not a fair basis to measure a game being good or bad. So we will definitely be working to make sure that we have it stable and that it's fun. So those are the core tenets.
Retention is so important. And, we're happy that Renegade X 8 years later, I mean, a lot of games don't survive 8 years. A lot of them don't survive 1 year. So the fact that we can have some hardcore fans that can keep the game going and thriving is great. And we're getting new downloads every day. So yeah, we encourage, hopefully one day we'll release City Flying Whistle. Hopefully one day. That was our April Fool's joke. For those who don't know, City Flying is one of the maps in the original Renegade. It was actually the very last map that Westwood released in their final patch for the original Renegade. And likewise, it's been this running joke, internal joke in the inside joke in the Renegade community, where it's like, when is City Flying being released? It's the last like official remake that needs to be definitely done. And it's always soon. And it's always, and like we have some internal version of it, but it needs to be more adequately tested and finished up. But yeah, yesterday I said that here's a link to City Flying, and then it was a Rickroll video.
Bringing back a classic.
Yeah, City soon TM.
The new joke is that that's just what is that? The Kruger effect, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where it's like, no, City Flying didn't exist. We just all have this false memory of it.
More of a Glacier fan anyway.
Yeah, Glacier was okay. I mean, Aircraft Killer kind of messed it up, but otherwise, yeah, it was not bad.
Yeah.
It had random, like the proximity mines, you couldn't see them when you put them in the snow. And like, there were like little like electrical effects in the middle of the air and stuff. But I mean, it was fun. I remember I did play Glacier in a clan war a couple times. That was weird, but it's a fun map. I do want to see that one get remade at some point. But yeah, City Flying, nice. Let's get that out first. Let's not be too ambitious.
Yeah, the figure of 8 on the bikes. Oof, doing racing on City was great.
And it's such a hyped up map that I imagine that it's going to bring back a lot of old players, literally like just back from the dead, just to play this again. So hopefully this year, everybody please message Havoc89 and ask him where the heck City Flying is. He's
a former developer, so he wouldn't be working on it anymore.
No, he's not working on it. That's just a joke.
Yeah. It used to be fix your game, but now he's gone. Yeah.
Now people are directed that at me, and it's like, no. I don't have that kind of power anymore.
So what was the community reception like for Renegade X?
Oh man, massive. Millions of downloads, definitely. It probably was the biggest and most hyped CNC mod / independent game probably ever. And of course, you also have a lot of other hyped games in the W3D hub community, including like Red Alert: A Path Beyond and Apocalypse Rising and Battle for Dune. So there are other mods that are comparable. But yeah, like out of the hundreds of attempts at creating a successful mod or independent game, standalone game that's related to CNC, I think Renegade X was the most successful event, at least in terms of the downloads and hits and amount of like mainstream attention in the industry and on YouTube and elsewhere.
So what can you tell us about the Firestorm project?
So Firestorm is based on Tiberian Sun Firestorm, which is the second iteration of the Tiberium universe. So you had Tiberian Dawn, that was CNC 95, and then you had Tiberian Sun, and its expansion pack was called Tiberian Sun Firestorm. So there's this old curse of creating an FPS game based on Tiberian Sun, because Tiberian Sun is this really cool game where you had like Titans, like these mechs and jetpacks and stealth bases and underground, like subterranean flamethrowers, and it had all this crazy stuff. And since 2002 or 3, there's always been this dream of like a Tiberian Sun FPS. And it found some success in some other mods and games. Like there was Reborn, CNC Reborn, which later became Tiberian Sun Reborn. That's on the W3D engine. I actually worked a lot on that too. Before I started Renegade X, I was a member of Command & Conquer Reborn, so I made most of the audio for that mod initially, and now that's a standalone game. And so, yeah, the idea of like a fully fledged standalone Tiberian Sun FPS with all the cool super weapons like cluster missiles and some of the concept super weapons like the cluster ion cannon, orca bombers and jump jets and like, you know, the rail guns. We wanted to just go like all out. And I should just go back one moment and say that Havoc 89, who was one of the major contributors for Renegade X up until last year, he actually had his own, he had a mod called Tiberian Sun Aftermath for Battlefield Vietnam. The game didn't really find much success, so he always wanted to create a Tiberian Aftermath 2 for the Unreal Engine. And so when I recruited him in 2006 for Renegade X, he was already like, in his mind, he's like, I'm doing Tiberian Aftermath 2 for Unreal Engine 3. And I was like, yeah, we can do that, but you want to come work for us on Renegade X? We already have a big team going. We already have forums. We already have all this other stuff. So he's like, okay, fine. Let's try to do both. And he eventually gave up the dream of doing a Tiberian Sun game until we finished Renegade X. And then now it's like, you want to do that Tiberian Sun game? I mean, now that we have a fully fledged multiplayer game, we can start subbing in some, let's just start subbing in some units. Like, let's put the Wolverine and the Titan in like a crate. So like you go in Renegade X, there's these random crates where you can get like money crates or veterancy crate, but you can also get like a random vehicle. And so initially it started as like, let's put some like Tiberian Sun, like hover MRLS, or put like a Titan, which is like a giant mech, or put a Wolverine, or a Tic Tank, which is like a tank that deploys and becomes kind of like this guard tower, this turret. And that gained a lot of attention and people were very excited about that. So the next obvious thing was, let's do a total conversion. Let's just take Renegade X and just turn it into Tiberian Sun. And we did something like that internally. And then we were like, you know what, let's kind of make this like Battlefield. Let's have lots of outposts where you can build lots of bases, more than one base. And then you just, like, it just kept evolving. Now we have a vision. We don't want too much feature creep. That was one of our problems. We like the feature creep. But now we have a vision of like what we should be doing, what the first release should look like and what the second release should look like, what Firestorm Assault should look like and what the final, Firestorm game should look like. So yeah, I mean, this is gonna be the smartest freaking game that anyone's ever seen. It's like I'm making the joke, but this might end up being like a publicity thing where it's like Firestorm, the game for smart people, because that's partly just because it's hard to figure out and there's a learning curve, but it's also really cool. Like you have all these bases and you have to build bases, you have to destroy the enemy bases. Each building does different things. Like you've got a construction yard that builds other structures. You have like a weapons factory, which is for building vehicles. You have a helipad, which is for building like aircraft. You've got super weapons, which have to be deployed in a certain way. It's very strategic, and no two games are the same. And it's not like as repetitive as some other FPS games could be. So this is really different. I've never seen anything like this. I don't think the industry's seen anything like this. So we're just really excited about it.
Nice. Are there any other key differences between Renegade X and the upcoming Firestorm project?
They're completely different. Like, and people think that like Renegade X, like they're gonna graduate, like they're gonna, okay, we're done, and then we're gonna move on to Firestorm. It's not necessarily like that.
Okay.
Renegade X is a very arcadey, fast-paced game, right? Tight, like the maps are tight. Like there's like choke points. Your base is already built. You just got one base, and you're just running and gunning, right? You're shooting from the hip. It's a ridiculous game. Very cartoonish, and that's the idea. That's the fun of it, you know. Kind of reminds me of Just Cause 2 for some reason. But then the Firestorm is this like heavier, like everything's heavier. You got giant maps. The gunplay is a lot more like Battlefield, for example, with some kind of Halo influences. You got to start from nothing. You start from like very basic tech, like just assault rifles, RPGs, and then you build up to the tick tanks, and then you build up to like the subterranean vehicles, then you build up to the aircrafts, and you build up to like the super weapons. We're using chemical weapons and cluster missiles and stuff. So it's a slower paced game. It's definitely, the gunplay is a lot more realistic. It's not the running gunning like shoot from the hip type game. It's much more strategic. So you got basically a different audience. And I mean, of course, we want CNC fans, and it's very strategic, and there's a lot of overlap with Renegade X, but they're ultimately going to be two very different games. And we hope that we can simultaneously support Renegade X and support Firestorm, because they're two different player bases, and I don't imagine that that'll change. Maybe upon release, a lot of Renegade X fans will be like curious, and they'll try out Firestorm. But in the end, I'm sure some will, just like with the original Renegade. I mean, Renegade doesn't die; it keeps going. So even Renegade X, I expect it to continue, and then Firestorm, it'll get a whole new kind of gamer. You know, the Battlefield gamers, the Planet Side gamers, the Halo players. That's we're going to be pulling in a lot more people and bringing some new life into this community.
Nice.
Yeah, some of the major changes I would say is it is not Renegade X2. That is 100% it. We've dropped the Renegade X name because it's setting up the wrong expectations. It is not the same game. It is similar to Renegade meets Battlefield in a way. The maps are bigger. You don't have the same choke points. If you've ever seen a Renegade map, a lot of them in sort of horseshoe-shaped designs. You know, the bases are very close, so that infantry can move up independently, play their game, because they don't go as fast as vehicles. Whereas the vehicles go out on the outer path and then they have their fight. It's like two different games of tug of war that open up different strategic options to you. In this one, we have air, underground, stealth, ground, and super weapons, and WMDs. WMDs being the classic, the lovable, the Mark II. You know, this is a vehicle that requires multiple people to use. We've never had that in Renegade. This requires right now 4, but there is discussion about having it up to about 6 people just to pilot this one thing. It is a culmination of the team. The team needs to come together to better do things. In Renegade, you can get occasional sneakers that go in and they blow up one building, and that's a death knell. If you lose the hand, if not the barracks, you don't rebuild that. That's not how that works. You're going down. It's a slow decline. That is one week, a heartbeat coming your way. That's a loss of blood. In this, you can rebuild. The main ones are construction yards, which you have to protect at all costs, but there are ways to potentially rebuild these. So it is more about getting that final punch, getting the strength behind your fist, the team coming together to push through, take the opportunity, put yourself in a position to strike that killing blow on the team. And you cannot do this alone. That is not to say that individual action has been reduced, much like that. What was it? That was that weird game, Top Down, on Steam, specifically about Foxhole. That's the one. They reduced individual action. It's more about the teamwork. So you feel like just a faceless man in the middle of World War I. We don't go for that side of the balance. You are part of your team, but you are important to that part of the team. We have emphasized, instead of having all light tanks or all orcas and doing a big rush, which is so common in Renegade, it is emphasizes combined arms and using multiple assets. You're covering a long amount of field, so you're going to get harassed by aircraft maybe. So you're going to bring a hovermorals, but you need to deal with tanks and you need to hit the base, so you're going to bring some Titans. But you need support because you need to travel that far along, so we're going to bring an APC with the repair facility on it. So you start seeing people moving out in these columns organically. And that's the biggest difference.
Artillery, of course, and juggernaut,
yes,
right? So you need support. You're pounding the enemy from far away. You've got your snipers maybe defending, the engineers who are repairing. And I mean, the Mammoth Mark moment, it's like the Megazord, man, from like Power Rangers. No, seriously, like, because you need like Troy, Sarah, you need like 5-6 people together to pilot this thing. And you need people like supporting it. And in order to take down the Mammoth Mark, for those who don't know, the Mammoth Mark is this gigantic forward-legged mech. And it's got rail guns, it's got minigun, it's got like
SAM sites.
Yeah, surface air missiles. And it's this insane, like, and we made it much bigger. Like we imagined it to be like way bigger than anything you could imagine. And like it's massive. And it requires like the whole team to take it down. You actually get like a warning, like WMD vehicle, like the enemy has created one. You're like, shit. And you have to like make a plan just to take down this one vehicle. And it's like storming towards your base and you're just throwing everything you can at it. You're trying to use super weapons at it. You're trying to pound it with artillery. You're trying to shoot rockets at it. You're trying to parachute and, get some C4s on it. So yeah, it's very different. And it's going to require a learning curve. So one of our main challenges is going to be like having the right tutorials and the right help menu and stuff to make sure that people can figure it out, because some are just not going to be patient enough. So Firestorm, the game for smart people. So that way you're just like, I'm a smart people, and you join and you put some effort into figuring out the game. That's my hope. But yeah.
It is so hugely different. And that's, again, why we've dropped the Renegade X. We cannot have that, I'll just go in and play this one character that I super love. You can do that. You're 100%. But it takes a bit of organic team building, sometimes filling in the niches of what people need in order to support them. And we're trying to make sure that anytime you do that, it's fun. You can still, I want to play a big zone trooper in a big suit of armor. You can still rock around with people and help them out and shoot people down. That's great. Some of the infantrymen, I want to just help people. I just want to shoot my gun. Maybe RPG people, drive an APC with you. Drop the APC off. Done. You can respawn there, and it helps keep your people alive. One of the biggest hurdles is the communications, because it's on a larger scale with the same amount of players. We need it to be as organic and intuitive as possible for where people need to come together to support, much like the WMD. When you see that coming down, your time's limited. If you do not work together, that is going to blow a hole through your base and kill you all. That is one of the organic elements. The rest, we need to have a communications network. Right now, if you've ever played Renegade, you got the control, you got alt menu, you do the keys, and it goes, I need repairs, that building's about to die, attack that target, stuff like that. We needed something a little bit smarter as well. So we're currently working on redesigning the communications and the coordination, because again, we do not have an armchair general. That's not a thing. The people on the field need to organically talk with everybody else. And that's a game that does not have voice communications. So that's one of the big hurdles we're facing right now as well.
Cool. Is there a rough idea of like the size of how many people are going to be playing on these maps?
64, right?
Okay, nice.
Yeah, 64, which we also have for Renegade X, which is a little high for Renegade X, but it'll make a lot more sense for Firestorm. You need a big team to do all of those tasks, from building structures to repairing to seaflooring to artillery to aircraft to God knows what else.
Nice. I'm feeling pretty hyped to play this game. Is it too early for an ETA or?
It'll be done when it's done.
Well, so Firestorm is going to be that close quarters, more like limited thing, and those who like Counter-Strike or Battlefield, Call of Duty, like they're going to love Firestorm Assault, because it's a lot like, it reminds me of Bad Company 2 for those of you who played that game, especially the assault mode, where you have a lot of destructible stuff, and it's you have these just a few character classes that are very customizable, and there's a particular objective, and we're trying to also add some objectives like that are from the original Tiberian Sun. So like for those of who know Tiberian Sun, we have like Vega's temple, and like GDI has to, you know, from their amphibious APCs, they deploy onto a beachhead and they have to push into this temple of Nod and destroy it from the inside. So yeah, like there's going to be enough nostalgia just sprinkled onto everything, but that game mode's going to be much more simple and straightforward, and we're hoping that will dampen down the learning curve for the full game. And once people are familiar with the classes and the weapons and the objectives and stuff, that now you can jump into the full game and it won't be too difficult to figure out because you'll already have some background.
That's one of the major things. Firestorm Assault, which is the rush game mode from Battlefield, if you ever played it, is it loses a lot of the macro. It does focus on a lot of infantry engagements, and it teaches a lot of the basics and is going to allow us to distill and provide feedback for those elements. However, we should see that this year, ideally. That's the plan. Most of Firestorm is just needing that feedback. Once we have the infantry stuff down, we've already got the vehicles and everything else done. The sooner we can get that done, and we can get that in a state that we're happy with, and we can provide that to you guys and the wider community, and have people tell us, oh, we like this, but this gun sucks. Then we can fix that. We can distill the infantry gameplay to make sure that it is up to date and keeps in track with the vehicles, because the vehicles are one of the better elements right now. It's the infantry that are a little bit lacking, and we want to fix that right now.
Yeah, and like we want to, like in the final stages of beta testing for the full Firestorm, full release, we do want to get as many communities, tight-knit communities involved in the beta testing, as well as other developers and industry insiders. And, you know, we will be setting an invite to clans and communities to apply for beta testing position in the future. But again, we're looking at probably next year. That's for the full game. And then for the Firestorm Assault, we're hoping Q3. We're just hoping, right?
Yeah,
we're putting in daily work and weekly tests of that. So we're making adjustments, and it's playing really cool. We just played it today. My God, you guys will be excited.
That's good. I mean, one of the biggest bottlenecks to our release is the fact that we are a volunteer project, and we are working with a lot of placeholder assets at the moment for particularly art. while we do have a number of new onboard artists recently from the new development with our website and the PR posts that we've been putting out, we've gained a lot of traction. However, we are still, a lot of the big things. If I don't know if you've seen the Titan, the Wolverine, and stuff like that, we're still working on making sure that all of the assets are done justice. That is the thing that will slow us down most at the moment, because art takes time, specifically if it's a volunteer project, which much of it is. So once we have those ready, it's pretty much will be good to go. That's going to take some time.
You're muted.
Good thing you said okay. Anyway, did you have any other big plans for Firestorm you wanted to share? Or did you pretty much hit everything for now?
We're the biggest fans of our own game. That's really, as you can tell, we're more excited than this than anyone else, and I think that's healthy. Well, usually that's healthy for a project, is to really be in love with what you're doing, and I'm very happy that we've got the right people spearheading this.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, big announcements and stuff like that. One of the things is we are a very organic group. As I said, it's that passion of seeing something really cool and going, what if I had this? What if I do this? And that's why, we're talking about feature creep as well, because it's easy to get carried away on the tides of this would be really cool if we did this. That'd be really cool if we did that. So we're trying to keep that to a minimum, but there are definitely a lot of cool things you're going to see. Any of the CNC fans, you're going to love what we've done with the infantry. You're going to love what we've done with the Titans. Specifically rejig the audio to make the weapons apocalyptic. And yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. I love a good audio. So it will do it justice, and it will be a new way to see the Tiberian Sun universe.
Nice. So for Totem Arts, where do you want to see it in the future?
Well,
yeah, go
ahead. That's a very good question. I would love to see us on a new engine. I would love to see, in a perfect world, working on another CNC game, a title with Unreal Engine 4 or 5. Some of the tests that we've done on that engine already is unbelievable. You've never seen a Wolverine on the testbed for Unreal Engine 4 with dynamic lighting, the shell casings dropping to the floor with a clatter, the chain guns bursting into a cement building as it breaks apart, the sheer beauty of a Tiberian dawn cresting over the hill with the poisonous air fuming up. It is something I would love to see, but it is not our IP. It is EA's. So ultimately, it's out of our hands on that one. But I would love to see us working on new projects, something that captures that feeling, because I don't think anyone's really played about with that. Battlefield 2042 tried to, dive into it. It's a homage to 2142, but they didn't quite go all the way. They just said, hey, here's a big map, and then did their thing. I would love to see the apocalypse of 2142 or the Tiberian Sun universe taking into the new technological era that we have now, seeing it on in a way that people have never been able to explore it before. That's what I'd like to see. But as a team, we'll figure that out together.
Did you have any fun stories from working on the projects that you wanted to share?
Oh, too many to count on. I mean, there's obviously the fun that we have in game with each other. Sometimes devs versus community, of course. Again, like we had, you talked about Renegade X, like the April Fool's stuff. We're a bunch of goofballs. We're a bunch of silly gooses, or silly geese rather, on this project. So we've all become fast friends, and we have fun doing what we're doing. And there's constant memes and jokes and GIFs. So it's like every day there's something. But again, like the fact that me and Havoc 89 lived in the same part of the same city was really eerie. We were like around the same age. It was really, really eerie. But Yeah, I guess that's, yeah. If you want to put one notch for fate or destiny, that you put that notch right there.
Yeah,
But
so it's interesting.
that's really again, if it wasn't us, it would have been someone else. I'm convinced. But we also, unlike a lot of, like, again, hundreds of other projects, we were able to succeed. So we did that with the help of the fans. We did that with the excitement of the fans and of the CNC community. And hopefully the most fun days are still ahead of us.
Yeah. I can't think of any one particular story. It's always just been a series of great moments. But between the team or just the community that we come from. I myself, most of the people came from the Renegade X community, and they just kind of vibed off each other and were working well together. And then we got brought onto the team, and we can add whatever we can to it, and that's how we got where we are. But it's all these moments just interacting with people, particularly in like the organized games that we run every week, where just silly stuff happens. Like you jump off a cliff with a couple of flame tanks onto GDI and blow them all up, and it's just leaves you laughing and giggling. Or when you have the community streams or CT with their bingo cards of what happens in the organized event, who does the airstrike, who brings the flamers out, stuff like that. These are just great moments. These are
You just look at Boki's videos. Like Boki puts together these really hilarious videos of real events in the public games of Renegade X. And I mean, you get the craziest comebacks in Renegade X, and that's still one of the coolest parts of the game, is that they basically destroy your base till you're left with nothing but sticks and stones, and then somehow you're able to just like Braveheart into the enemy, or Leroy Jenkins into the enemy, and just like eventually sometimes you win in that circumstance. You've got nothing but like these one-shot rockets, and you can actually conquer a whole fleet. So yeah, the game itself sets itself up for excitement and fun and twists and turns and comebacks.
Yeah, the game definitely provides the tools for those memorable experiences. Call of Duty you can play all day and just like bam bam, I killed that dude, great. Bam bam, I killed that dude, great. These are the moments where you get everyone together. It's like, right, we've got nothing left. We've got a power plant. We're all going to get chem troopers and going to rush the tunnel. And somehow you blow up everything in their base with chem troopers. And you're just shouting, it's time to take your vitamins and stuff like that. Completely out of nowhere. You don't know how it worked, but it did. With a prayer 3 hours in.
Because we have these taunts, like you press Z, and there's like 30 different characters in Renegade X or more. And like, each of them have their own unique taunts, and they have like several of them. So for the chem trooper, it's like, take your vitamins. What's the other one?
I can't remember.
There's like a laugh. Yeah.
There's a bunch of weird ones.
There's a bunch of funny ones, and like there's times where you plant a nuke, and there's almost no chance that nuke is going to go off, but you defend it just the right way, or you have a C4 that goes off at just the right time. So there's a lot of these like stressful moments that become very rewarding in Renegade X, and we hope that continues for Firestorm.
Yeah, just those moments are what help keep it alive, particularly for me.
Nice. Do you have any recommendations for anyone looking to get into game creation?
Oh yes, actually. A few things would be UDEMY. They have a bunch of courses that you can learn if you wanted to get into like the coding or anything like that. Very good tool. A lot of them are paid for. Very handy. I'm actually on that myself, learning to code, and it's going well. Besides that, it's about communications. Get onto Twitter, get onto Reddit, go through the game development stuff and just see what's out there. You will be surprised. Don't be intimidated. These are people just trying to make cool stuff. They're people first, everyone involved. It's not a faceless corporation like EA or Ubisoft or anything like that, where it would be a little bit more intimidating, a little more professional or something like that. But start with indie games. Reach out to these people and like, hey, I'm interested in this. I've got a little bit of experience. Could I help you out? Let's have a conversation. That's how you go. You just reach out, put yourself out there, and just have that conversation. That would be the number one thing. If you're looking for that confidence, Fake it till you make it. Say it with confidence, and you'll be fine. You don't have to have that confidence. Just say it. Hell, you can speak to us too. I mean,
Well, I think that gaming is fun. Game creation is not always fun. So you have to go in with the expectation that yes, it's gonna feel like pulling teeth, getting people to work together, solving glitches, finding code that runs consistently. Like it's gonna be very difficult. And it's really only very fun in like the final stages when everything comes together. So you have to kind of make the most of it. You have to have the right people around you. You have to just not give up, put in daily work, be ambitious, pull all-nighters when you need to. It's not something that can be procrastinated. You need like daily consistent work and discipline to do it. So a lot of it is mind over matter and just being able to govern yourself properly in order to have the stamina to create a game over a period of several years.
All right.
anything that you felt?
Sarah,
Andy?
probably you want to contribute some. I'm sure Sarah has some advice too.
Yeah, I'd say she's the most technically minded out of all of us. So yes, please, Sarah.
So just in regards to like programming or like learning learning any specific language or like figuring out which would be the best way to architect your code, I would definitely say like get started modding on a game that you already like and you already play. Like for example, some big ones out there that have a lot of mods would be something like Minecraft, for example. That game has like tons of different mods or even just plugins for servers. Like just getting that experience and seeing how games work from inside the perspective of it is definitely a good way to like put your head in a mind space to understand game development from a programming side at least.
Hell yeah, mods. Mods are the way to go.
Nice.
Yeah, and we could mention that like we're also like we have our own development kit, so people can make maps and mods for Renegade X, ironically. So that's something that we're pretty open with our community. They can use our assets. They could contribute to the game in their own way, and if we like it, we might even include it in the official game. We might bring you on board. A lot of the time, the developers of the game start off as just fans of the game, players that eventually are so passionate that that they have to make it to the team and even senior levels of the team.
Certainly.
That's one thing I forgot to mention. I actually did start just with making mods for a server a few years back. And eventually I started just like looking into the actual bugs of Renegade X in general, instead of just trying to work on mods. Specifically for Renex, it is a little bit different working on mods and the game itself, but I kind of just found my way onto the team after I did some poking around with modding and programming.
Yeah, you remove one bug, you're stuck with us forever. But that's what Fobby said is a good point as well. Is we do have the developer kit, and we will be releasing that for Firestorm as well in due course. So all of these assets and everything, you'll have the ability to make your own maps. So you don't feel restricted. You want to get into map making, you can do it there. You wanted to just get into game designer or anything else like that, that's the way to do it. Programming can be intimidating. Doesn't have to be, but it's not for everyone anyway. So explore the things that interest you. But it involves a communication. A team is not a team if you do not talk.
There's no I in team.
Well, yeah.
All right, so we're coming up on the end here, but I wanted to give you all a chance to kind of plug your socials and then plug the socials for Totem Arts. So I'll start with you, Whistle.
So I'm Whistle. I'm going to be in the Totem Arts channel on Discord. Find me there, I suppose. I don't really have a big social media presence at all, so I will just say, TA, join us. It's great. You can find me there if you've got questions about anything we do. I'd be happy to answer those. Yeah, Totem Arts. That's the Discord. It's not Renegade X. Look for Totem Arts. Cheers.
All right,
Yeah,
Fobby?
don't come looking for me. Especially especially if you have like people come report bugs to me. It's like we've got a infrastructure already for that. You don't have to come to me. Like people will message me in game, like private message, and be like, Fobby, I don't know if you know this, but in this part of the map, there's this thing. If you stand like this and you look like this, then this happens. And it's like, okay, great. Take it to the forums, report the bug. We'll look into it in due time. We have to prioritize these things. But yeah, like with totemarts.games. So that's TOTEMARTS.GAMES. And of course, Facebook. We have the Renegade X on Facebook. We've got Totem Arts on Twitter and like most of the major social media. I mean, I want to do a TikTok. That would be very interesting. Maybe a way to get some of these dancing people into the game, right?
Please
But, but yeah, no, I mean, Discord's going to be the best and quickest way to access members of the team and members of the community. And we hope to see you in game. And if you are an awesome player in game, you might even graduate and be part of the closed pugs that we have. And then if you're a graduate of that, testing. And if you're a graduate of that, maybe the team itself.
Yeah. I mean, the testers are part of the team, but yeah, the pug is our organized game that we do every Saturday and Sunday, about 7 p.m. GMT. Fantastic experience, just great to do. It's fun to do. Just, yeah, if you want to join a community, you don't even need to talk, but just be able to work together. And that's one of the things that we look for so much for our tester group. People that can communicate and work together. So if you're interested in maybe seeing what Firestorm's like, pugs are generally where we look for people. So check it out.
All right, Sarah?
You can find me also on the Totem Arts Discord, of course, and also on our forums.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for joining us here on the Orphan Podcast. Certainly appreciate it. It's nice meeting all three of you. And we are certainly looking forward to Firestorm, as well as that magical map that might come someday in Renegade.
Magic might someday. Those are you got an asterisk, the underline, and the italics, and change the font and the size on those words.
Soon TM, but with a look that says maybe sooner than you think.
And we can always blame COVID or World War III if it doesn't happen.
Well, there you go. You already got the scapegoat sitting there waiting for you. And for all of you there listening, I'll put down some of the links that they've mentioned right down in the description of the video or the podcast so that you can go check them out. And then, of course, hopefully here in the future in the Aura Fury Discord, we'll also be organizing some games in Firestorm, or possibly bringing Renegade X back for some fun. There was a few of us just a few weeks ago that were playing again. So if you are interested, shout out to me in the Discord, or shout out to Alex over there, and we'll get back with you on it. We definitely want to hear if there's interest. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.